The departure ceremony the next morning was brief but meaningful. Queen Althea presented them with official tokens of their status as participants in the exchange program. Small crystalline devices that served both as identification and as repositories of approved information about Sirian culture and history. These will help guide your work as bridges between our worlds, she explained. They contain knowledge suitable for sharing, interfaces for secure communication, and emergency protocols should they become necessary. The royal ship that would return them to Earth was smaller than the one that had brought Queen Althea to retrieve her daughter, but still impressively advanced by human standards. As they prepared to board, Lioness stepped forward to embrace each of them. "Thank you," she said to Damon, her violet eyes shining with emotion. "For finding me, for helping me, for showing me humanity's heart." "Thank you for changing our lives," he replied, surprised by the lump forming in his throat. "And for trusting us with something this important." "Trust earned," she assured him. "See you soon. Show me real Earth next time. Not just junkyards." Damon laughed. "Deal. There's a lot more to see than old electronics." Boarding the ship felt surreal, like stepping out of a dream back toward reality. As the ramp closed behind them and they settled into their seats for the journey, Damon found himself experiencing a complex mixture of emotions. Nostalgia for the wonders they were leaving behind, excitement for their new role, anxiety about the responsibilities ahead, and a deep appreciation for the extraordinary turn his ordinary life had taken. "You're quiet," Cody observed as the ship rose smoothly into the Sirian atmosphere. "Having second thoughts?" "Just the opposite," Damon replied, watching the capital city shrink beneath them. "I'm thinking about how differently I see everything now. 3 weeks ago, I was fixing broken electronics in a trailer park, convinced that was all my life would ever be. And now you're an interplanetary diplomat." Cody completed the thought with a grin. "Something like that." Damon turned from the window to face his friend. "Do you think we're ready for this? To be humanity's first guides to life beyond Earth?" "Honestly, no," Cody admitted. "But I don't think anyone would be. We're just lucky enough to get the chance to try." The transit back to Earth passed quickly, the mysterious faster-than-light technology of the Sirianans compressing vast interstellar distances into mere hours. Before Damon had fully processed that they were leaving Siriana, the ship's commander was informing them that they were approaching Earth's solar system. "We have coordinated with certain Earth authorities for your discreet return," the commander explained. "A limited number of officials have been briefed on the exchange program and will facilitate your reintegration. They have been carefully selected based on psychological profiles suggesting openness to peaceful contact." "So the men in black suits know we're coming back?" Damon asked. "Some of them," the commander confirmed with what might have been amusement. "Though they have been instructed to treat you not as subjects for interrogation, but as valuable intermediaries." As they entered Earth orbit, Damon was struck by the view of his home planet. Familiar, yet somehow new when seen from this perspective and with the knowledge he now possessed. The blue marble, suspended in space, was no longer the entirety of his world, but just one point in a vast, interconnected cosmos. "It looks so isolated," he murmured. "So alone." "Not anymore," Cody reminded him. Their landing site was a remote military facility in the desert southwest, similar to where they had departed, but with considerably more preparation evident. A small welcoming committee waited as the Sirian ship settled gently onto the tarmac, a mix of military personnel and what appeared to be government officials in civilian attire. "Remember," the Sirian commander advised them as the ramp extended, "you are not required to share more than the approved information. Your status as exchange program participants grants you certain diplomatic considerations, even on your own world." "Understood," Damon acknowledged, straightening the Earth clothes they had changed into their own original garments, cleaned and preserved by the Sirianans during their stay. "And thank you for everything." The commander inclined his head respectfully. "It has been an honor to transport the first official human participants in interstellar exchange. May your journey continue to bring our worlds closer in understanding." Stepping back onto Earth's soil felt oddly disorienting. The gravity, slightly stronger than Siriana's, the air different in subtle ways that Damon hadn't noticed until experiencing an alternative. The sky above was a familiar blue rather than the deeper azure of their temporary home, and the sun's light carried a yellower quality than Syriana's reddish star. A woman in a crisp suit approached them, flanked by 2 military officers. "Mr. Pierce, Mr. Morgan," she greeted them formally. "I'm Amanda Reeves, Deputy Director of Special Projects. Welcome home." "Thanks," Damon replied cautiously, though I'm not entirely sure what kind of welcome to expect. Reeves offered a thin smile. "I understand your concern, given the circumstances of your departure. However, I can assure you that your status has evolved significantly. We've been briefed on the exchange program by representatives of the Syrian government." She gestured toward a nearby building. "If you'll accompany us, we have a facility prepared for your debriefing and orientation. I imagine you have as many questions for us as we do for you." As they walked, Damon noticed the Syrian ship already preparing for departure, its mission complete once they were safely delivered. He felt a momentary pang at this final severing of physical connection to Syriana, though he knew the communication devices they carried would maintain a link. The debriefing process was surprisingly respectful. Rather than the interrogation Damon had feared, they were treated more like returning diplomats, offered comfortable accommodations, medical examinations that were explained as routine precautions after interstellar travel, and interviews that felt more like consultations than interrogations. The existence of the Syrian exchange program is classified at the highest levels, Reeves explained during one session. Only a small group within the government is fully aware of what transpired. To the public, your disappearance was never officially acknowledged, and your return will be equally discreet. So we're just supposed to go back to our lives, as if nothing happened?" Cody asked skeptically. "Not exactly," Reeves replied. "You'll be provided with new identities, similar to your original ones, but with enhanced credentials and resources appropriate to your new roles. You'll appear to the world as consultants for a private research foundation, which will actually be a front for the exchange program operations." "And what exactly will those operations entail?" Damon inquired. "Initially, identifying and vetting potential additional participants, individuals with the right combination of skills, temperament, and discretion to join the program. Scientists, cultural specialists, linguists, people who can contribute meaningfully to understanding Syrian and society while representing humanity's better qualities." It was a surreal conversation, sitting in what was essentially a government black site, calmly discussing the implementation of humanity's first official, if limited, contact with an alien civilization. Yet as the days of debriefing continued, Damon began to appreciate the careful approach being taken. Both sides were feeling their way forward cautiously, respecting the magnitude of what was happening while trying to avoid the chaos that might result from hasty public disclosure. 2 weeks after their return to Earth, they were finally cleared to leave the facility. They emerged into a world that was exactly as they had left it, yet fundamentally different through their new perspective. "So," Cody said as they stood outside the nondescript office building that would serve as their official headquarters, "this is it, the beginning of the rest of our lives as interstellar diplomats." "Apparently," Damon agreed, still struggling to fully process the transformation of his circumstances. He had gone from living in a ramshackle trailer, scraping by on odd repair jobs, to being provided with a comfortable apartment, substantial resources, and a mission of historic importance. Their first months back on Earth passed in a whirlwind of activity. They established their cover identities, began the delicate process of identifying potential program participants, and regularly reported developments back to Syriana using their secure communication devices. Occasionally, they would receive updates from Liana, brief, encrypted messages about her continued studies and her preparations for an eventual return to Earth as part of the official exchange delegation. 6 months after their return, Damon found himself standing on the balcony of his new apartment, gazing up at the night sky. Somewhere among those stars was Syriana, and Liana, and Queen Althea, and all the wonders he had briefly experienced. Yet Earth no longer felt like a prison or a limitation. It was one world among many, now connected through the tenuous thread of the exchange program that he was helping to nurture. His communication device chimed softly, indicating an incoming transmission. The holographic display activated, projecting Liona's familiar features. Older now, more mature after months of resumed royal education, but still with that spark of curiosity and warmth that had drawn him to her from the beginning. Damon, she greeted him enthusiastically. Good news. Council approved first official delegation, coming to Earth next month. That's fantastic, he replied, genuinely excited. How big a delegation? Small. For scientists, 2 cultural specialists. And me, she added with a grin. Finally show me real Earth, yes? Absolutely, he promised. There's so much I want you to see. Must be discreet still, she reminded him. But big step. Beginning of something important. After they ended the transmission, Damon remained on the balcony, contemplating the stars with renewed purpose. The exchange program was moving forward cautiously, deliberately, but steadily. Humans and Sirianans learning about each other, building trust, establishing the foundation for what might eventually become full diplomatic relations. And it had all begun with a chance encounter in a junkyard. A lost alien princess and a human who simply did what felt right. From that small moment of connection, a bridge between worlds was slowly taking shape. The alien queen had lost hope of finding her missing child, until a human brought the child back. Now, the human was helping to bring 2 civilizations together, one careful step at a time. Damon smiled up at the stars, imagining Lina doing the same from her observatory tower on distant Siriana. Different worlds, different species, yet connected by the simplest and most powerful of bonds: compassion, curiosity, and hope for a shared future among the stars. As he turned to go back inside, his gaze lingered on one particularly bright star in the night sky. Not Siriana's sun, which was too distant to see with the naked eye, but a symbolic reminder nonetheless. The universe had opened up to humanity through the most unexpected of doors, and Damon Pierce, former electronics repairman from a trailer park, was helping to hold that door open. Not bad for a Tuesday, he murmured to himself, echoing his own words from the day he had first encountered Lina. Not bad at all. The exchange program would grow slowly over the years that followed. Carefully selected humans would visit Siriana, returning with approved knowledge to gradually prepare Earth for the reality of interstellar civilization. Sirian representatives would experience Earth firsthand, developing a more nuanced understanding of humanity's potential beyond its troubled history. Eventually, perhaps in decades, perhaps sooner if circumstances aligned, the relationship would become public knowledge. Humanity would take its place among the stars not through conquest or accident, but through the deliberate building of mutual respect and understanding. A process that began with a queen's despair, a lost princess, and a human who simply chose to help. Sometimes, the most momentous changes begin with the smallest acts of kindness. And sometimes, the most unlikely individuals become the architects of history, not through grand designs or extraordinary abilities, but through being in the right place at the right time and making the right choice. We can return you whenever you wish, Althea assured him. Time functions somewhat differently for us. We have methods of travel that can bring you back to almost the exact moment you left, should you decide your visit to Siriana has concluded. Damon exchanged glances with Cody, who looked like he was trying not to vibrate with excitement. A chance to visit an alien civilization, Cody said. To see technology centuries beyond ours. To be the first humans to set foot on another habitable planet. How is this even a question? Damon couldn't help but smile at his friend's enthusiasm, but his own thoughts were more conflicted. This was a monumental decision, even with the promise of a return. What if something went wrong? What if they couldn't come back? He had no family waiting for him, true, but still, to leave Earth behind, even temporarily. Then again, what did he have to go back to? A leaky trailer? Odd jobs, fixing other people's broken electronics? The constant struggle to make rent? Here was an opportunity that no other human had ever been offered, to see the stars, to visit another world. And then there was Laia, the strange alien child who had somehow worked her way into his heart in just 2 days. The thought of saying goodbye so soon after finding her was more painful than he had expected. Laia seemed to sense his hesitation. She approached him, taking his hand and looking up at him with those extraordinary eyes. She spoke, and though he couldn't understand the words, the meaning was clear. Please come. All right, Damon said, decision made. I accept your invitation, Your Majesty. I'd be honored to visit Syriana. Althea nodded, seeming pleased. Excellent. And you, Cody Morgan? Try to stop me, Cody replied with a grin. Then it is settled, Althea declared. We shall depart for Syriana immediately. Velon looked less than thrilled with this decision, but said nothing, merely bowing stiffly before exiting the chamber. He doesn't seem too happy about this arrangement, Damon observed once the advisor had left. Althea's expression was diplomatic. Velon is traditional. He believes in strict adherence to protocols regarding interaction with developing worlds. But he also respects royal prerogative. In other words, he'll grumble but do as he's told, Damon suggested. A hint of amusement flickered across Althea's face. A succinct assessment. Now, I must attend to certain matters before our departure. Lionel will show you the observation deck, where you can witness our transition to interstellar travel. It is quite spectacular for first-time observers. With that, she departed, leaving them with Liona, who was practically bouncing with excitement. She beckoned them to follow her to a different section of the vast chamber, where comfortable seating faced a particularly clear portion of the dome. As they settled into seats that seemed to mold themselves to their bodies, Cody leaned over to Damon. I still can't believe this is happening, he whispered. We're about to travel to another star system. Yeah, Damon agreed, the reality finally sinking in. It's pretty mind-blowing. Liona touched a control panel embedded in her armrest, and the lights in the chamber dimmed, allowing the stars above to shine more brilliantly. Earth's blue curve dominated one side of the view, but as they watched, the ship began to move, turning away from the planet until it was just a diminishing crescent behind them. A soft chime sounded throughout the chamber, followed by an announcement in a musical Syrian language. Liona pointed upward excitedly. What's happening? Damon asked her, though he knew she couldn't really answer. He got his response a moment later as space itself seemed to ripple before them. Stars stretched into lines of light, and a shimmering curtain of energy formed ahead of the ship. It was as if they were looking through a heat haze, except the distortion was in the very fabric of reality. Some kind of warp drive? Cody breathed, his face illuminated by the strange light, bending space-time for faster-than-light travel. The distortion intensified, and suddenly the stars were gone, replaced by a swirling tunnel of iridescent energy. Damon felt a brief sensation of pressure, a momentary disorientation, and then calm. They were moving through this tunnel of light, impossibly fast, yet with no sense of acceleration. This is amazing, Damon said softly. Liona smiled at him, clearly pleased by their reaction. She touched another control, and a holographic display appeared before them, showing what appeared to be their course. A tiny dot representing Earth was at one end, while at the other, is that Syriana? Cody asked, pointing to a larger, more detailed representation of a planet. Liona nodded. How long will it take us to get there? Damon wondered aloud. As if in answer to his question, a timer appeared on the display, counting down. The alien numerals meant nothing to him, but Liona held up her hands with fingers spread, then closed and reopened them once. 20. Damon guessed. 20 what? Hours? Days? She shook her head, pointing to a smaller unit on the timer that was ticking down more rapidly. Minutes, Cody suggested incredulously. We're going to cross who knows how many light years in 20 minutes. Liona's affirmative gesture left them both speechless. The journey passed in a blur of wonder. Liona took her role as tour guide seriously, leading them through different sections of the ship, introducing them to crew members, most of whom regarded the humans with a mixture of curiosity and caution, and showing them marvels of Syrian technology that left Cody in a state of perpetual amazement. Damon found himself equally fascinated, but for different reasons. He was less interested in the technical specifics of how things worked and more captivated by the culture that had created them. The Syrianans, he was beginning to realize, were not just technologically advanced. They approached the universe from a fundamentally different perspective. Their technology wasn't just functional. It was beautiful, integrated seamlessly with art and nature. Living plants grew throughout the ship, not as decoration, but as integral components of life support and navigation systems. Surfaces responded to touch, thought, and emotion. Energy flowed visibly through crystalline conduits, pulsing with the collective life of the vessel. Before he knew it, Lyanna was leading them back to the observation chamber, indicating that their arrival was imminent. When they returned, they found Queen Althea already there, engaged in discussion with several officials, including the ever-present Thuylon. "Ah, excellent timing," Althea said as they entered. "We are about to emerge from transit space. Please be seated." They took their places once more, and the holographic display reappeared, showing their position much closer to the Syriana representation. The timer was down to less than a minute. "Your Majesty," Damon said, taking advantage of the moment, "I've been wondering, how do you speak our language so well? The translation technology your advanced team, you seemed much more basic." "An observant question," Althea replied. "While we have studied your world from afar for some time, our knowledge was indeed limited. However, when we received Lyanna's transmission, I underwent an accelerated language integration procedure, focusing on your dominant global languages. English seemed the most practical choice for our interaction." "You learned English, Indiana. What a few hours?" Cody asked, clearly impressed. "The process is more complex than simple learning," Althea explained. "It involves a form of neural pattern adaptation that—" She was interrupted by another chime, and the swirling tunnel of light around them began to fade. "We have arrived," she announced, turning toward the transparent dome. The tunnel vanished completely, replaced by a star field that was subtly different from the one they had left behind. And there, filling a large portion of their view, was Syriana. Damon's breath caught in his throat. The planet was magnificent, larger than Earth, with 2 visible moons and an atmosphere that gave its outer edges a golden glow. Continents of deep emerald and amber were visible through swirling white cloud patterns, and the oceans shimmered with a purplish-blue hue unlike any water on Earth. "Welcome," Althea said formally, "to the homeworld of the Syrian people." The descent to the planet's surface was a carefully choreographed ballet of technology and nature. Smaller escort vessels joined them as they entered the atmosphere, their formations shifting in what appeared to be a ceremonial pattern. Lyanna explained, through gestures and the occasional translated word, that this was the traditional honor guard for returning royalty. As they descended through the cloud layer, the landscape below came into clear view. Damon pressed against the transparent dome, drinking in details of this alien world. The architecture was unlike anything on Earth, structures that seemed to grow organically from the landscape, spiraling towers of crystal and some material that resembled mother of pearl, all interconnected by graceful arching bridges. Parks and gardens flowed through the city like green veins, and what appeared to be transportation capsules moved along transparent tubes that webbed between buildings. "It's beautiful," he said, inadequate words for the vista before him. "The capital city of Lumina," Althea told them, "seat of the Syrian and royal house for 20 generations." The ship slowed its descent, coming to hover above a vast circular plaza of polished stone. In the center stood a structure that could only be the royal palace, a breathtaking complex of soaring towers and connecting wings, surrounded by gardens that glowed with bioluminescent flora. "The people have gathered to welcome Lyanna home," Althea said, indicating the plaza below, where crowds of Syrianans had assembled in concentric rings. "Her disappearance affected not only me, but our entire society. Her return will be celebrated for many cycles." The ship settled onto a landing platform adjacent to the palace, and preparations for disembarkation began. Attendants appeared, offering Damon and Cody new clothing more appropriate for the occasion, flowing garments of a light, comfortable material that seemed to adjust itself to their forms. "These will help you adapt to our atmosphere," one of the attendants explained. "While it is compatible with your physiology, it contains elements your bodies are not accustomed to. The fabric will filter and adjust as needed." Once they were appropriately attired, they joined the royal party near the ship's main exit. Althea and Lyanna had changed into formal regalia, elaborate robes adorned with the same winged insignia Damon had seen in Lyanna's hologram, with delicate circlets of some crystalline material on their brows. "You will walk with us," Althea instructed, "as honored guests and the saviors of the princess." "Is there any special protocol we should know about?" Damon asked nervously. "I don't want to cause a diplomatic incident on our first day." "Simply follow our lead," Althea assured him. "Our people understand you come from a different culture. They will not expect you to know our customs." The ramp descended, and bright light flooded in, the red-gold sunlight of Syriana, so different from Earth's yellow sun. A chorus of musical tones rose from the assembled crowd, a harmonious welcome that seemed to resonate in Damon's very bones. Althea stepped forward first, tall and regal, acknowledging the greeting with a graceful gesture. Lyanna followed, practically glowing with happiness as she returned to her homeworld. Then came Damon, and Cody, blinking in the unfamiliar light, overwhelmed by the sights, sounds, and scents of an alien world. The formal procession moved from the landing platform through a series of gardens to the palace proper. Syrian and nobles and officials lined the path, bowing deeply as their queen and returned princess passed. Many regarded the two humans with open curiosity, though none spoke directly to them. "They're staring at us," Cody murmured. "Wouldn't you stare if two aliens showed up in Washington, D.C.? Damon replied under his breath. The palace interior was even more impressive than its exterior suggested. Vast halls with soaring ceilings, walls that seemed to shimmer with their own inner light, floors inlaid with patterns that subtly shifted as they walked. Living plants grew throughout, some bearing luminous fruits or flowers that pulsed in rhythm with movement around them. They were led to what appeared to be a throne room, a circular chamber with a domed ceiling that mimicked the star field above the planet. At the center, on a raised dais, stood two ornate chairs clearly designed for Althea and Lyanna. The queen took her place, gesturing for Lyanna to join her, while court officials arranged themselves in what was obviously a predetermined order of precedence. Damon and Cody were guided to positions of honor near the dais, though not on it, a diplomatic balance that placed them above the regular nobles but still acknowledged their outsider status. A series of formal presentations followed, with various officials stepping forward to welcome Lyanna home and pledge renewed loyalty to the crown. Most spoke in the Syrian language, though occasionally Althea would translate key points for the humans' benefit. Throughout the ceremony, Damon found his attention repeatedly drawn to the reactions of the court officials. While most seemed genuinely joyful at Lyanna's return, he noticed subtle tensions in some of their interactions. Vylon, in particular, kept casting guarded glances toward him and Cody, clearly still uncomfortable with their presence. Finally, Althea rose, gesturing for silence. "Today marks not only the return of Princess Lyanna to her rightful home," she announced, her voice carrying effortlessly through the vast chamber, but also a historic moment for Syriana. For the first time, representatives of Earth, known to us as Terra, stand among us as honored guests. A murmur ran through the assembled court. Althea continued. "Damon Pierce and Cody Morgan showed courage and compassion in protecting and assisting my daughter when she was lost on their world. They risked their own safety to ensure hers. For this, they have earned not only my personal gratitude, but the formal recognition of the Syrian and crown." She beckoned them forward, and with nervous glances at each other, they approached the dais. "Kneel," an attendant whispered. They did so, and Althea descended the few steps to stand before them. From a cushion presented by an attendant, she took two small emblems, stylized versions of the royal winged insignia. With these tokens, she said, attaching the emblems to the shoulders of their garments, I name you friends of the crown, entitled to the protection and hospitality of the royal house of Syriana for as long as you remain among us. The ceremony concluded shortly thereafter, transitioning to what appeared to be a more relaxed celebration. Musicians played instruments that produced sounds unlike any Damon had ever heard, filling the air with complex, beautiful harmonies. Attendants circulated with refreshments, exotic fruits, beverages that shimmered with inner light, delicacies whose appearance gave no hint as to their taste or composition. Should we try eating this stuff? Cody whispered, eyeing a tray of glistening morsels. What if it's poisonous to humans? They've obviously studied our physiology if they could make these adaptive clothes, Damon reasoned. I'm sure they wouldn't offer us anything harmful. He selected something that resembled a small, luminous grape and popped it into his mouth. Flavor exploded across his palate, sweet and tangy at first, then shifting to something deeper, more complex, with notes that reminded him simultaneously of cinnamon, citrus, and something entirely new. Oh wow, he managed after swallowing. You have to try these. Cody followed his example, his eyes widening as he experienced the same sensory journey. That's not food, that's an experience. They were sampling other offerings when a tall, severe-looking Syrian man approached them. Damon recognized him as one of the officials who had been engaged in intense discussion with Thuelon during the ceremony. Humans, he said, his English clearly less practiced than Althea's, but still comprehensible. I am Lord Vexeler, Minister of Interplanetary Relations. It's an honor to meet you, Damon replied, trying to recall if there was any formal greeting he should be using. Vexeler studied them with barely concealed skepticism. Your presence here is unprecedented. Some might say premature. We were invited by Queen Althea, Cody pointed out, after we helped Princess Lina. Indeed, a fortunate coincidence, finding our lost princess. Something in Vexeler's tone suggested he found it perhaps too fortunate. And now you are here, with unprecedented access to our world, our technology, our culture. Damon felt a chill despite the pleasant temperature of the room. We're just grateful for the opportunity to learn about your civilization. We mean no harm. Few ever believe they mean harm, Vexeler replied cryptically. Yet intentions and consequences often diverge. Remember this during your stay, humans. With that ominous statement, he inclined his head slightly and moved away, leaving Damon and Cody exchanging concerned glances. I think we just got threatened, Cody murmured, in the politest possible way. Not everyone's happy we're here, Damon agreed. We should probably be careful about. Damon, Cody, Lina's voice interrupted them. She had slipped away from her formal duties and hurried over, her face alight with excitement. The formal regalia hadn't diminished her youthful energy. She spoke rapidly, gesturing animatedly, clearly trying to communicate something important. After a moment, an attendant joined them, activating a translation device. Princess Lina wishes to show you to your chambers, the attendant explained. She has personally overseen their preparation and is eager for your approval. We'd be delighted, Damon replied, relieved for the excuse to exit the increasingly uncomfortable reception. Lina led them through a series of corridors, occasionally stopping to point out features she found particularly interesting or important. Despite the translation difficulties, her enthusiasm was infectious, and Damon found his spirits lifting as they followed her deeper into the palace. The chambers turned out to be an entire suite of rooms in what Lina indicated was the royal family's private wing, an honor whose significance wasn't lost on Damon. The spaces were beautifully appointed, with furnishings that seemed to anticipate their needs and adapt to their preferences. This is incredible, Cody said, testing a bed that perfectly adjusted to his form. I'm never going to be able to go back to my futon after this. Lina beamed at their approval, then spoke to the attendant, who translated. The princess says these will be your rooms for as long as you wish to stay on Syriana. She has included Earth-like elements for your comfort, based on her observations during her time there. Damon noticed those touches now, subtle adaptations of typical Syrian designs to incorporate more familiar aesthetics. There was even what appeared to be an attempt at Earth-style electronics, though the technology was clearly far more advanced. "Thank her for us," Damon said to the attendant. "It's perfect." After Lyanna had reluctantly departed for her own royal duties, Damon and Cody explored their new accommodations more thoroughly. The suite included not only sleeping quarters, but also a common area, facilities that approximated bathrooms, though with considerably more advanced features, and a balcony overlooking one of the palace gardens. Stepping out onto the balcony, Damon was struck anew by the alleyness of the world around him. The Syrian sky was a deeper shade of blue than Earth's, with scattered clouds tinged gold by the red-hued sun. In the gardens below, plants unlike any on Earth swayed in patterns that seemed almost deliberate, and small flying creatures, whether birds, insects, or something entirely different he couldn't tell, darted among the luminescent blooms. "I can't believe we're really here," Cody said, joining him at the railing. "On another planet, in an alien palace, as honored guests of their queen. It's like something out of a dream. Or a sci-fi movie," Damon agreed. "One with a much bigger budget than my life usually gets." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, absorbing the wonder of their situation. Finally, Cody spoke again, his voice more serious. "Not everyone welcomes us, though. That Vexler guy definitely sees us as a threat of some kind. And the Elon doesn't seem thrilled either. We're an unknown factor," Damon reasoned. "They're worried about what our presence might mean for their society, their security. I can't really blame them." "So what's our play here?" Cody asked. "How long do we stay? What's the exit strategy?" Damon shook his head. "I don't know. Althea said we could return to Earth whenever we wanted, but..." He trailed off, not quite ready to articulate the thought forming in his mind. "But you're not sure you want to go back," Cody finished for him. "At least not right away. Are you?" Damon countered. "Ready to leave all this behind?" Cody laughed. "Hell no. I'm going to learn every single thing I can about their technology before I even think about leaving. This is literally the opportunity of a lifetime." "Exactly," Damon said, turning back to the alien landscape before them. "Besides, we have a responsibility now. We're the first humans to visit another habitable world. Whatever happens here, whatever we learn, whatever connections we forge, it could shape the relationship between our worlds for generations." "No pressure or anything," Cody muttered. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from within their chambers. Returning inside, they found an attendant waiting. "Queen Althea requests your presence for the evening meal," the attendant announced. "She wishes to discuss your role during your stay on Syriana." "Our role?" Damon echoed. "What does she mean by that?" "I believe Her Majesty will explain herself," the attendant replied diplomatically. "Shall I inform her you will attend?" Damon and Cody exchanged glances, then nodded in unison. Whatever Queen Althea had in mind for them, they were eager to hear it. The dining chamber was smaller and more intimate than the throne room, clearly designed for private meals rather than state occasions. A table of polished stone that resembled mother-of-pearl dominated the center, set with utensils and vessels of elegant design. Large windows offered views of the capital city, now illuminated by bioluminescent lights as evening descended. Althea was already present when they arrived, along with Lyanna and, somewhat to Damon's surprise, Dvilon. The queen greeted them warmly, gesturing to seats that had been prepared for them. "I trust your chambers are satisfactory?" she inquired as they settled in. "More than satisfactory," Damon assured her. "They're amazing. Thank you for your hospitality." "It is the least we can offer," Althea replied. "Now, I imagine you have many questions about your stay here." "A few," Damon admitted, "particularly about what you mentioned earlier. Our role?" Althea nodded. "Yes. While your presence here began as a matter of gratitude and protection, I believe it presents an opportunity for both our worlds." She paused as attendants brought the first course of the meal, delicate portions of something that resembled seafood, arranged in intricate patterns. "As you may have noticed," she continued once the servers had withdrawn, Not everyone is entirely comfortable with your presence. Some, like Lord Vexeler, believe contact with Earth is premature. He made that fairly clear, Cody remarked. Yet others see potential benefits in establishing cautious relations, Althea went on. Earth is still developing, true, but your species has shown remarkable adaptability and creativity, qualities we value. Thuelon cleared his throat. What Her Majesty is suggesting, he said, his tone carefully neutral, is that you might serve as informal ambassadors during your stay, providing insights into human culture and perspective while learning about ours in return. Ambassadors? Damon repeated, surprised by the suggestion. We're not diplomats. I fix electronics for a living, and Cody's a hacker. Cybersecurity specialist, Cody corrected quickly. Neither of us is qualified to represent Earth in any official capacity. Official representation is not what we require at this stage, Althea assured him. Your very ordinariness is what makes you valuable. You represent not Earth's governments or elite institutions, but everyday people. Your reactions, your questions, your observations, these provide a more authentic window into human nature than any formal diplomatic exchange. Damon considered this perspective. It made a certain sense, though the responsibility still felt overwhelming. And what exactly would this role involve, he asked. Initially, simply experiencing our world, Althea explained. Meeting with various segments of our society, scientists, artists, educators, under the guidance of appointed mentors. Sharing your impressions and answering questions about your own world. Later, perhaps more structured exchanges of ideas in areas of mutual interest. It sounds amazing, Damon admitted, but I'm still not sure we're the right people for this. Lyanna, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up, addressing her mother in their language. Althea listened, then smiled. My daughter makes an excellent point, she said. She reminds me that you did not hesitate when faced with protecting her, despite having no qualifications for alien princess rescue either. Sometimes, the right people are simply those who are there when needed. Damon couldn't help but laugh. When you put it that way, all right, we accept your proposal, Your Majesty. We'll be your unofficial ambassadors from Earth. Excellent, Althea said, raising a crystalline goblet in a toast. To new understandings between our worlds. As they dined on increasingly exotic dishes, all adapted to be safely digestible by humans. The conversation turned to practical matters, their schedule for the coming days, the mentors who would guide them, the areas of Syrian society they would explore first. Thuelon, though still reserved, proved surprisingly helpful in explaining aspects of Syrian culture that might otherwise confuse them. Our society values harmony and continuity, he told them. Change occurs, but deliberately, with careful consideration of consequences. This is perhaps our greatest difference from what I understand of human civilization. We do tend to rush into things, Damon acknowledged, for better or worse. Both approaches have merit in different contexts, Althea observed diplomatically. Perhaps there is wisdom to be shared in both directions. As the meal concluded, Lyanna could barely contain her excitement about showing them more of her world the next day. Through the translator, she outlined an ambitious itinerary of her favorite places in the capital city. The princess will make an enthusiastic guide, Althea said with fond amusement. Though perhaps we should ensure you have some time to rest and acclimate as well. They agreed on a balanced schedule, and as the evening drew to a close, Damon found himself feeling more optimistic about their strange new role than he had expected. The enormity of their situation remained overwhelming. They were literally the first humans on another inhabited world, but broken down into manageable daily activities, it seemed less intimidating. That night, standing on the balcony of their chambers under Syriana's alien stars, Damon reflected on the extraordinary turn his life had taken. 3 days ago, he had been a nobody, struggling to make ends meet in a rundown trailer. Now he was an honored guest in an alien palace, appointed as an informal ambassador for all of humanity. What are you thinking about? Cody asked, joining him. How completely insane our lives have become, Damon replied honestly. and how strangely right it feels despite everything. I know what you mean, Cody agreed. It's like, this is exactly where we're supposed to be. Damon nodded, his gaze drawn to the unfamiliar constellations above. Somewhere among those stars was Earth, unreachably distant by any technology humans possessed, yet now connected to Syriana by the most unlikely of bridges. A bridge that began with a lost alien princess and a human who simply did what anyone would do. He helped her find her way home. The days that followed were a whirlwind of discovery. True to her word, Lyanna proved an enthusiastic guide, leading Damon and Cody through the wonders of the capital city with boundless energy. Her command of English improved rapidly with daily practice, supplemented by the translation devices that were never far away. The city of Lumina revealed itself as a marvel of both technology and artistry. Transportation systems moved people effortlessly through crystalline tubes that networked the entire urban area. Buildings incorporated living plants into their very structure, creating spaces that were as much garden as architecture. Energy flowed visibly through the city in luminous conduits, harvested from sources that Damon could barely comprehend despite Cody's eager technical questions. Most fascinating of all were the people themselves. Initially cautious around the human visitors, the Syrianans gradually warmed to their presence, especially when introduced by the beloved princess. Damon was struck by their blend of similarities to and differences from humans. Their emotions seemed familiar, their relationships recognizable. Yet their perspective on life, time, and progress was fundamentally different. Your species measures time in such small units, one elder scientist remarked during a visit to what appeared to be a research institution. You live with such urgency. Our lives are shorter than yours, Damon explained, having learned that the average Syrian lifespan was nearly 200 Earth years. We have to make the most of the time we have. The scientist considered this. Perhaps that explains your remarkable rate of innovation. Necessity born of mortality. These philosophical exchanges became a regular feature of their experiences, as Syrianans sought to understand the human perspective and, in turn, shared their own. Not all interactions were so harmonious. However, as they moved through different circles of Syrian society, they occasionally encountered those who shared Lord Vexeler's view that contact with Earth was premature and potentially dangerous. These concerns range from fear of human aggression, based on Earth's violent history, to worry about cultural contamination to simple xenophobic discomfort. During an otherwise pleasant dinner with members of what appeared to be an academic council, one elderly Syrian fixed Damon with a penetrating stare. Your kind reach for the stars before you learn to live in peace on your own world, he said bluntly. That pattern concerns many of us. Damon couldn't entirely disagree. We're still evolving as a society, he acknowledged. But that's true of all civilizations, isn't it? If you'd waited for us to achieve perfect harmony, you might have waited forever. Some would say that would be preferable, the elder replied, though with less hostility than before. Despite these occasional tensions, Damon found himself adapting to life on Syriana with surprising ease. The initial alieniness of everything gradually gave way to a new normal. He developed a taste for Syrian cuisine, learned the basic courtesies of their social interactions, and even began to recognize patterns in their musical language, though actual fluency remained beyond his grasp. Cody, for his part, had become something of a celebrity among the Syrian and technical community. His insatiable curiosity and intuitive grasp of complex systems impressed even the most skeptical scientists. They had taken to calling him the Quick One, a reference both to his rapid learning and his energetic demeanor. One evening, about 2 weeks into their stay, they returned to their chambers to find Queen Althea waiting for them, attended only by Velon and a single guard. Her expression was serious enough to immediately concern Damon. Your Majesty. He greeted her with the slight bow he'd learned was appropriate. Is something wrong? Not wrong, precisely, Althea replied, gesturing for them to be seated. But we have received interesting news that concerns you both. Damon and Cody exchanged worried glances as they took their seats. Your abrupt departure from Earth has created something of a situation, Althea continued. The authorities who were pursuing you have been investigating your disappearance intensively. They have connected it to what they're classifying as an unidentified aerial phenomenon, our ship. They know we left with aliens, Cody translated. I'm not surprised. There were plenty of witnesses at the lake bed. Indeed, Althea agreed. What you may not know is that this has catalyzed a significant debate within your world's governments about the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence and the possibility that Earth has been visited before. We've become a global conspiracy theory, Damon realized. The guys that got abducted by aliens. Not precisely abducted, Velon corrected primly. Tell that to the tabloids, Cody muttered. This presents both challenges and opportunities, Althea continued. On one hand, your return, when it occurs, will inevitably attract significant attention. On the other, this growing awareness may help prepare your society for the eventual reality of formal contact with other civilizations. You're thinking about official first contact with Earth, Damon said, suddenly understanding the implications. And we're part of the preparation for that. Althea nodded. The Council of Elders has been debating this matter intensely. While some, like Lord Vexler, remain opposed, others believe that your presence here, and your successful integration thus far, suggests that at least limited diplomatic relations might be possible sooner than previously thought. How soon are we talking about? Cody asked. That remains undetermined, Althea replied carefully. Such decisions are not made lightly. But your insights into how such contact might best be approached would be valuable to the ongoing discussion. Damon felt the weight of responsibility settle more heavily on his shoulders. They weren't just informal cultural ambassadors anymore. They were potentially helping to shape humanity's first official contact with an advanced alien civilization. The Alien Queen had lost hope of finding her missing child, until a human brought the child back. The endless russet sky of Syriana stretched across the horizon like a melancholy canvas, its perpetual dusk casting long shadows across the crystalline spires of the royal palace. Massive quartz columns rose majestically, refracting the crimson light in prismatic patterns that danced across the polished stone pathways. Once, these lights had moved in joyful rhythm with the laughter of the young princess. Now, they merely pulsed with the somber heartbeat of a grieving queen. Queen Althea stood on her balcony, gazing out at her kingdom with eyes that saw nothing. The ceremonial armor she wore, adorned with the royal insignia of glittering wings, felt heavier with each passing day. 3 years had passed since her daughter, Princess Lina, had disappeared during a diplomatic mission to the outer rim of their galaxy. 3 years of silence. 3 years of emptiness. Below her, the bioluminescent flora shifted from vibrant azure to a muted indigo, reflecting her sorrow. The plants of Syriana had always been empathically connected to the royal bloodline, another curse she now bore, as her entire kingdom literally darkened with her grief. Your Majesty, came a soft voice from behind her. The council awaits. Althea turned, the iridescent fabric of her robes catching the light. She nodded to the attendant and followed, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous hallway. The palace had grown too large, too quiet, in her daughter's absence. The council chamber was a marvel of Syrian architecture, a perfect dome with a ceiling that mirrored the galaxy above. Around a circular table sat 12 of her most trusted advisors, their expressions a mixture of deference and concern. They rose as she entered, bowing deeply before resuming their seats at her gesture. The mourning band, a slender ribbon of deep violet, still lay in the corner of the throne room, untouched since the 2nd anniversary of Lina's disappearance. Let us hear today's reports, Althea said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion that permeated her being. High Commander Elon, his silver-streaked hair pulled back tightly, stepped forward first. Your Majesty, our scouts have completed their sweep of the Cygnus Quadrant. No signs of the princess's vessel, no unusual debris patterns. The diplomatic envoys? Althea asked, though she already anticipated the response. Grand Diplomat Neria shook her head. Nothing from the Kaldorian Empire, nor the Vespera Coalition. If they have information about Princess Lina, they aren't sharing it. One by one, they delivered their reports all the same. No leads, no hope, only theories that grew more outlandish with each passing month. Some whispered of political conspiracy, others of cosmic anomalies, wormholes that might have swallowed the princess's ship whole. Althea listened with vacant eyes. Her mind had begun to drift when scientific advisor Zirith, a thin man with luminescent markings tracing his forearms, cleared his throat. Your Majesty, if I may, perhaps we should consider scaling back our search efforts. The statistical probability of finding. You wish me to abandon my daughter? Althea's voice was soft, but sharp enough to silence the room. Never, Your Majesty, Zirith said quickly. But after 3 years, our resources might be better allocated to. To what? Althea rose, her composure finally fracturing. To rebuilding a future without her? To pretending her chamber doesn't lie empty? To forgetting the sound of her laughter? The silence that followed was deafening. No one dared speak, not even Zirith, who stared fixedly at the table before him. After several long moments, Althea sank back in her chair. Forgive me, she said. You speak from logic, not cruelty. You're right. We have nothing left to pursue. Reduce the search parties. Recall our long-range scouts. Each word felt like betrayal on her tongue. The advisors exchanged uneasy glances. It was the first time in 3 years their queen had conceded to hopelessness. Schedule the necessary adjustments, Althea continued, her voice hollow. This council is... A sharp, urgent tone cut through the chamber. Every head turned toward the communication panel embedded in the wall, now pulsing with an urgent blue light. What is that? Althea demanded. Communications Officer Lorella rushed to the panel, her fingers flying across the interface. An incoming transmission, Your Majesty. But it's strange. Strange how? It's not coming through any of our established channels. It's incredibly crude, almost primitive. The origin appears to be a small planet in the Orion Arm. Designation, Earth. Earth? Althea had never heard of it. Display the transmission. The center of the council table shimmered, and a holographic projection materialized. The image was grainy, unstable, a far cry from their crystal-clear technology. It showed a chaotic scene, a cluttered room filled with what appeared to be rudimentary technology parts. A male figure moved in and out of view, seemingly struggling with some device. And then, for just a moment, another figure appeared in the frame. Althea's heart stopped. A small, slender figure with distinctly pointed ears, oversized eyes, and a familiar silver-white shimmer to her hair. She was saying something, laughing, in a language none of them understood. But Althea understood the laugh. She would know it anywhere. Lina, she whispered, the name of prayer on her lips. In an instant, she was on her feet. Trace that signal. Now, Your Majesty, we can't be certain, Thelon began. I am certain, Althea cut him off, a fierce light kindling in her eyes. My daughter is alive, and she's on that planet. The council exploded into action. Lorella worked frantically at the communication panel, while Zirith called for astronomical charts of the sector. It's an underdeveloped world, someone reported. Classified as pre-interstellar. They've barely reached their own moon. I don't care if they're still throwing spears, Althea said. Prepare my ship. I want a reconnaissance team assembled within the hour. For the first time in 3 years, the bioluminescent plants in the chamber began to pulse with a brighter blue. As the council members dispersed to their tasks, Althea remained, her gaze fixed on the frozen image of the laughing child. Hold on, my starlight, she whispered. Mother is coming. That night, standing at her bedroom window, Queen Althea looked up at the star-filled sky of Syriana. Somewhere out there, impossibly far yet suddenly within reach, was her daughter. She pressed a hand against the cool glass, as if she could stretch across the countless light years between them. Lina, she whispered again, her voice carrying the weight of 3 years of grief and, now, a dangerous flicker of hope. I'm coming for you. Damon Pierce was having an exceptionally bad Tuesday. First, his ancient coffee maker had decided to commit suicide in spectacular fashion, shorting out half the electricity in his trailer. Then his latest improved remote control prototype had somehow reprogrammed his client's entire entertainment system to only play polka music at maximum volume. And now, to cap it all off, he was elbow deep in the innards of a 1980s cathode ray television, trying to figure out why it was picking up what looked suspiciously like Russian weather broadcasts. Just another day in the glamorous life of Damon Pierce, electronics genius, he muttered to himself, shoving his unruly brown hair out of his eyes with his forearm, leaving a smudge of grease on his forehead. The trailer park where he lived was on the outskirts of town, far enough away that rent was cheap, but close enough that he could bike to the various odd jobs that kept him afloat. His home, a vintage Airstream that he'd bought for a song because the electrical was shot, an irresistible challenge for someone with his peculiar talents, was cluttered with circuit boards, soldering irons, and various electronic devices in various states of disassembly. Damon had never quite fit in anywhere. Too restless for formal education, too creative for routine employment, he'd carved out a niche for himself as the go-to guy for fixing anything with wires. This arrangement suited him fine until he got carried away with improvements that nobody had asked for, which happened with alarming regularity. Last month, he'd been fired from Green Tech Solutions for turning the company's digital thermostat into what his supervisor angrily described as a sentient climate control system with attitude problems. Damon had tried to explain that the system was merely programmed to argue with anyone who wanted to set the temperature above 72 degrees for energy efficiency purposes, but management had been unmoved. Their loss, he said to himself as he poked at the television's circuit board. That thermostat was a work of art. His stomach growled, reminding him that he'd missed lunch. Again, with a sigh, he put down his tools and stretched, his back crackling in protest after hours hunched over the workbench. Food first, Russian weather later, he decided, grabbing his jacket. The local junkyard, a treasure trove for someone of his particular proclivities, was on the way to the convenience store. He might as well make a quick stop to see if anything interesting had turned up. Sunset Salvage Yard was a vast, chaotic landscape of discarded metal, appliances, and vehicles. The owner, Old Man Jenkins, had given up trying to keep Damon out years ago and now simply charged him a modest browsing fee whenever he found something worth taking home. "Just don't electrocute yourself on my property," Jenkins would growl. The paperwork would be hell. Damon wandered through the labyrinthine paths between towering piles of scrap, occasionally stopping to examine a promising-looking piece of tech. He was so focused on a vintage amplifier that he almost tripped over the small figure crouched behind it. "Whoa!" he yelped, stumbling backwards. "Sorry, I didn't see." He stopped, his apology dying on his lips as he got a good look at the person. It was a child, a girl, he thought, but unlike any child he'd ever seen. Her skin was pale with an almost pearlescent quality, her eyes disproportionately large, and a deep, vibrant violet that seemed to contain shifting depths like galaxies in miniature. Most startling of all were her ears, which tapered to delicate points. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other. Hi there," Damon finally managed, crouching down to her level. "Are you lost?" The child tilted her head, regarding him with those unsettling eyes. Then, to his surprise, she smiled. A bright, guileless expression that transformed her alien features into something almost human. "Laya," she said, pointing to herself. "Laya," Damon repeated. "Is that your name?" She nodded enthusiastically, then pointed at him with a questioning expression. "Oh, I'm Damon. Damon Pierce." He extended his hand automatically, then wondered if that was even the right protocol for greeting. Whatever she was. To his relief, she took his hand, but instead of shaking it, she turned it palm up and traced a pattern on it with her finger, humming a strange, melodic sequence of notes. "Okay, so, not big on English, huh?" Damon said, unsuccessfully trying to suppress the rising panic in his chest. "Are you here with someone? Parents? Guardians? Alien overlords?" Laya shook her head, her expression turning sad. She reached into a pocket of her strange, shimmery garment and pulled out what looked like a small crystal. When she pressed it, a holographic image appeared, a woman with the same pointed ears and luminescent eyes, dressed in ornate, regal attire. "Mama," Laya said, her voice breaking slightly. Damon's jaw dropped. "Your mom is... Okay, wow." He took a deep breath. "So you're not from around here, are you?" Laya shook her head again, then pointed upward. "Great. Perfect. You're from space." "Because of course you are." Damon ran a hand through his hair. "And you're lost, and you found me, which means..." "What exactly? I'm supposed to what, call NASA? Are there intergalactic child protective services I should contact?" The girl just looked at him with those disconcertingly intelligent eyes. Damon sighed. "Look, I can't just leave you here in a junkyard. It's getting dark and it's going to rain and... Jesus, I can't believe I'm saying this, but do you want to come with me? Until we figure out who to call about this whole situation." Laya's face lit up. She nodded emphatically and reached for his hand again. "All right then," Damon said, feeling as though he'd just stepped off a cliff. "Let's go. Do whatever it is you do when you accidentally adopt an alien." As they walked back through the junkyard, Damon couldn't help but notice how fascinated Laya was by the most mundane objects. A broken clock radio, a discarded cell phone, even the rusty padlock on the gate. She touched everything, humming different tones as if communicating with the inanimate objects. "You're into electronics too?" "Huh?" he asked, watching her examine an old circuit board with obvious recognition. "Maybe we'll get along after all." They were nearly to the gate when Laya suddenly froze, her eyes widening in what Damon recognized as fear. She tugged urgently at his sleeve, pulling him behind a large stack of tires. "What's wrong?" he whispered. In answer, she pointed toward the entrance, where a sleek black SUV had just pulled up. Men in dark suits emerged, their movements precise and coordinated in a way that screamed government to Damon's admittedly paranoid mind. "Are they looking for you?" he asked, his heart rate picking up. Laya nodded, her expression grim. Okay, think," Damon muttered to himself. "Alien child, men in black. This is literally every sci-fi movie ever." He peered around the tires, watching as the men approached Old Man Jenkins, who was gesturing around the yard. "Do they want to hurt you?" he asked Laya. She made a gesture he couldn't interpret, then mimed something being taken away. "They want to take you? For tests or something?" She nodded emphatically. "Right. Not happening," Damon decided, surprising himself with the sudden protectiveness he felt. "We need to get out of here without them seeing us." Damon looked around desperately, trying to formulate an escape plan. The yard's back fence was too high to climb quickly, and the main gate was now blocked by the government agents. "We need a distraction," he muttered. Laya tugged at his sleeve again, pointing to a pile of old electronics. Before Damon could stop her, she darted over and placed her hands on an ancient car battery. To his astonishment, the battery began to glow, and then, with a sound like 1,000 crickets all chirping at once, every electronic device in a 30-foot radius suddenly activated. Alarm clocks rang, radios sputtered to life, playing different stations, car alarms wailed, and, most dramatically, the lights on the black SUV began flashing spasmodically while its horn blared an SOS pattern. The men in suits whirled around, momentarily disoriented by the cacophony. Damon didn't waste the opportunity. He grabbed Laya's hand and ran, crouching low behind the piles of junk until they reached the far corner of the yard where Damon knew there was a loose section of fence. "This way," he whispered, lifting the chain link just enough for the small girl to wiggle through. He followed, tearing his jacket in the process, but too amped on adrenaline to care. They emerged onto a back street, where Damon immediately pulled Laya into the shadow of a dilapidated warehouse. "Okay," he panted. "That was... Wow, you did that? With the electronics?" Laya nodded, not even winded. Cool. Damon peered around the corner. "I don't think they saw us, but we should keep moving. My place isn't far." They kept to side streets and alleyways, Damon constantly looking over his shoulder. It wasn't until they were safely inside his Airstream with the blinds drawn and the door locked for whatever good that would do against government agents, that he allowed himself to breathe normally again. "So," he said, collapsing onto his worn couch, "you're an alien being pursued by mysterious government agents. And now you're in my home. This is fine. Totally normal Tuesday." Laya, meanwhile, was exploring his living space with undisguised fascination. She moved from his workbench to his bookshelf to his makeshift kitchen, touching everything and occasionally making those musical sounds that seemed to be her way of expressing emotion. When she reached his collection of half-dismantled electronics, her eyes lit up. With unexpected confidence, she began sorting through components, occasionally holding up a resistor or a capacitor for his approval. "You really do know this stuff, don't you?" Damon said, watching as she expertly connected two components that he'd been struggling to interface for days. She nodded without looking up, completely absorbed in her task. Within minutes, she had assembled what looked like a crude communication device from his spare parts. "What's that supposed to be?" he asked, moving closer. In response, Laya flipped a switch. The device hummed to life, emitting a soft blue glow. Small lights blinked in a pattern that somehow felt deliberate, and a low-frequency vibration filled the room. Are you trying to call home?" Damon asked, a mixture of awe and apprehension washing over him. Laya nodded, her expression hopeful. She tapped at what appeared to be a makeshift control panel, adjusting dials Damon hadn't even noticed her installing. Suddenly, the device sparked violently. Laya jumped back with a small cry as the gadget began smoking ominously. "Whoa, whoa, whoa." Damon lunged forward, unplugging it before it could catch fire. "Easy there, E.T. Let's not burn down my home, okay?" Laya looked so crestfallen that Damon immediately felt guilty. "Hey, it's okay," he said, kneeling beside her. "We'll figure something out. Maybe we can fix it together." Before she could respond, a familiar black SUV drove slowly past the trailer park entrance. Damon quickly pulled Laya away from the window. "They're looking for us," he said unnecessarily. "We need to be smart about this. We can't stay here long." That night, after improvising a bed for Laya from blankets and couch cushions, which she arranged in a curious nest-like formation, Damon lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his Airstream. "What am I doing?" he whispered to himself. "This is insane. I should be calling someone, anyone. But who? The police would just hand her over to those men in suits. Scientists would want to study her. And the media? That would be a circus. Besides, Laya clearly didn't want to be found by Earth authorities. She wanted to go home. Damon turned his head to look at the sleeping child. In repose, with her extraordinary eyes closed, she looked almost human, a lost little girl, vulnerable and alone on a strange planet. "Okay," he decided, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. "I'll help you find your mom." Somehow, outside, unnoticed by either of them, the modified radio that had sparked earlier was now emitting a faint, rhythmic signal, broadcasting its location to the stars. Morning light filtered through the threadbare curtains of Damon's Airstream, casting dappled patterns across the cluttered interior. Damon groaned and rolled over, his brain slowly emerging from a dream about being chased by government agents with glowing fingertips. "Weird dream," he muttered, rubbing his eyes. Then he froze as memory returned. It hadn't been a dream. He really had encountered an alien child at the junkyard yesterday. He really had run from mysterious men in black suits. And he really had brought said alien back to his home. He sat up abruptly, scanning the trailer. "Laya." No response. Panic flared in his chest as he scrambled out of bed, looking frantically around the small space. Had she left? Been taken? Had yesterday been some elaborate hallucination? Then he noticed the bathroom door was closed. Relief washed over him, followed immediately by a new concern. Did aliens even use human bathrooms? Before he could ponder this further, the door opened and Laya emerged, looking quite pleased with herself. Her silver-white hair was damp, and she was wrapped in his oversized bathrobe. "Oh, good, you figured out the shower," Damon said, sagging against the wall. "That's normal. Everything's normal." Laya tilted her head questioningly. "Nothing," just talking to myself. It helps me pretend this situation isn't completely insane. He ran a hand through his hair. Are you hungry? Do you even eat food? Our food. In response, Laya's stomach growled audibly. She looked down at it in surprise, then laughed, a bright bell-like sound that was startlingly human. Damon couldn't help but smile. I'll take that as a yes. Breakfast was an adventure in culinary anthropology. Laya approached each food item with scientific curiosity, examining it thoroughly before tasting. Toast was deemed acceptable. Scrambled eggs caused her to make a face of such comical disgust that Damon laughed out loud. The true hit, however, was maple syrup, which she would have consumed straight from the bottle if Damon hadn't intervened. Okay, sugar is apparently universal, he noted, wiping sticky alien fingers with a damp cloth. Duly noted, as Laya contentedly licked the last traces of syrup from her lips. Damon turned his attention to the device she'd assembled the night before. In the light of day, he could better appreciate the ingenuity of her design. She had somehow modified his old radio transmitter into something far more sophisticated. What exactly were you trying to do with this? He asked, turning it over in his hands. Laya scampered over, pointing to the device, and then upward, her meaning clear. Sent a message home. Damon translated. But it didn't work. She shook her head, looking frustrated. She tapped the transmitter and made a series of gestures that Damon interpreted as not strong enough. You need more power? Or better equipment? She nodded emphatically. Damon sighed. Better equipment is going to be tough. It's not like I can walk into Radio Shack and ask for alien communication technology. He thought for a moment, but I might know someone who can help. My friend Cody, he's a bit of a tech genius, specializes in communication stuff. Laya's eyes lit up with hope. There's just one problem, Damon continued. We need to get across town to his place, and those men in suits are probably still looking for us. As if on cue, his phone buzzed with a news alert. Damon opened it to find a local story about unusual electrical disturbances at Sunset Salvage Yard, with authorities investigating a potential case of industrial espionage. The article included a grainy security camera image that, thankfully, didn't clearly show either of them. Okay, so they don't know exactly who they're looking for yet, Damon said, showing Laya the article. But we still need to be careful. Disguising an alien child for public transportation turned out to be simpler than expected. With her hair tucked under a beanie hat, her ears covered, and her distinctive eyes hidden behind oversized sunglasses, Laya could pass for an eccentric human child. Damon added a surgical mask as a final precaution, claiming allergies if anyone asked. Perfect, he said, surveying his handiwork. Just a normal kid with a severe dust allergy and an unusual fashion sense. The bus ride across town was mercifully uneventful, though Damon's heart nearly stopped when a police car drove past. Laya, for her part, seemed utterly fascinated by the mundane experience, watching the streets pass with rapt attention and occasionally humming quietly when something caught her interest. Cody lived in a converted warehouse in the industrial district, its exterior deliberately neglected to discourage curiosity, its interior packed with cutting-edge tech. He made his living as a cybersecurity consultant, which, as far as Damon could tell, meant he got paid by companies to hack into their systems and tell them how he did it. This is kind of a weird situation, Damon warned as they approached the nondescript metal door. So, try not to do anything, too alien. Laya nodded solemnly, though Damon wasn't entirely convinced she understood. He pressed the buzzer, and after a moment, a camera above the door swiveled toward them. Password, came Cody's voice through the intercom. Seriously? Damon groaned. It's me, you paranoid lunatic. Password or no entry. You know the rules. Fine. The cake is a lie. Happy now. The door buzzed and clicked open. Damon ushered Laya inside, into a freight elevator that carried them up 4 floors before opening directly into Cody's living space. Cody Morgan was a lanky black man with dreadlocks gathered in a high ponytail and fingers that never seemed to stop moving. His loft was an open-concept space dominated by an impressive array of monitors, servers, and electronic equipment that made Damon's collection look like children's toys. "The prodigal Pierce returns," Cody announced dramatically, spinning in his chair. "To what do I owe the—" He stopped short when he noticed Laia. "You didn't tell me you were bringing a kid." "Yeah, about that," Damon said, closing the elevator door securely behind them. "This is going to sound crazy, but I need you to keep an open mind." 20 minutes later, after Damon had explained their situation, with occasional musical interjections from Laia, Cody was pacing back and forth in front of his bank of monitors. "Let me get this straight," he said, holding up a finger. "You found an alien child in a junkyard, ran from government agents, and now you want my help to contact her home planet? That about sums it up." "Yeah. Have you considered that this might be the most elaborate prank in history? Or that you finally snapped from inhaling too many soldering fumes?" Before Damon could respond, Laia removed her sunglasses, beanie, and mask. She fixed Cody with her unsettling violet gaze, then deliberately wiggled her pointed ears. Cody stopped pacing. "Okay then. Believe me now?" Damon asked. "Either that, or we're both hallucinating." Cody approached Laia cautiously, studying her with professional curiosity rather than fear. "What did you say her name was?" "Laia. Or that's what it sounds like anyway." Laia nodded, then reached for the pendant around her neck, a small crystal similar to the one she'd used to show Damon the image of her mother. She held out to Cody. "What's this?" he asked, taking it gingerly. "Some kind of data storage, I think," Damon explained. "It showed me a hologram of her mom yesterday, but I couldn't figure out how to access any other information." Cody turned the crystal over in his hands, eyes widening as he noticed the intricate patterns etched into its surface. "These look like some kind of script." He carried it to one of his workstations, where a high-resolution scanner was connected to a computer. "Let's see what we're dealing with." After several minutes of scanning and digital enhancement, they were looking at a magnified image of the crystal's etchings on one of Cody's large monitors. "Definitely writing of some kind," Cody mused. "Unlike anything I've ever seen, but it has structure, repetition patterns consistent with language." Laia pointed to a recurring symbol, something like an elongated figure eight with radiating lines. "That one means something special?" Damon asked. She nodded, then traced the shape in the air, adding elaborate gestures around it. Finally, she pointed to herself, then made a crown shape with her hands above her head. "Wait," Damon said slowly. "Are you saying that's a royal symbol? Like for a queen or princess?" Laia's vigorous nodding confirmed his guess. "So you're royalty?" Damon gaped at her. "Space princess?" "Seriously?" Cody let out a low whistle. "You don't do anything halfway, do you, Pierce? First alien you meet, and she's basically Princess Leia." "This is insane," Damon muttered, pacing now himself. "I'm harboring alien royalty. Those weren't just random government agents after her. They must be some kind of specialized unit. If they find out, I've got her." "Deep breaths," Cody advised. "Let's focus on the problem at hand. She needs to contact her people, right?" Laia had moved to examine the device she'd built at Damon's place, which they'd brought with them. She pointed to various components, then at Cody's more sophisticated equipment, her meaning clear. "She needs better tech to boost the signal," Damon translated. "Can you help?" Cody hesitated only briefly before nodding. "This is either the most important thing I'll ever do or the most elaborate hallucination I've ever had. Either way, I'm in." For the next several hours, they worked together, with Laia directing their efforts through gestures and drawings. Her technical knowledge was clearly advanced, but limited by her inability to verbally explain complex concepts. Still, with Damon's practical skills and Cody's expertise in communications technology, they made progress. By late afternoon, they had assembled a surprisingly compact device that Laia seemed pleased with. It incorporated parts from Cody's spare equipment, Damon's original radio, and, most crucially, the crystal pendant, which apparently contained more than just decorative etchings. "Looks like it's ready," Cody said, stepping back from their creation. "Though I have no idea what it's actually going to do." "Only one way to find out," Damon replied, looking to Laia for confirmation. She nodded, reaching forward to activate the device. As her fingers touched the crystal component, it began to glow with an inner light. A soft humming filled the room, gradually increasing in pitch until it was almost beyond human hearing range. The assembled equipment vibrated slightly, and then, with a sudden surge of energy, projected a beam of light upward. Where it hit the ceiling, the light spread out, forming what appeared to be a map of stars. "Whoa," Cody breathed. "Is that a star map?" Damon confirmed. "She's showing us where she's from." Laia pointed to a specific cluster of stars, then to herself. Next, she indicated their current position, Earth, with a different gesture. "Can you record the coordinates?" Damon asked Cody. "Way ahead of you," Cody replied, already typing furiously at one of his computers. "I'm capturing everything." The star map flickered, then changed to what appeared to be a recording. A stately woman with features similar to Laia's, the same woman from the hologram, was speaking earnestly in an unknown language. Though they couldn't understand the words, the emotion in her voice was unmistakable. "Worry, fear, love. That's her mother," Damon said softly. "She's looking for her." Laia's eyes filled with tears as she watched the recording. She reached toward the image, her small fingers passing through the light. "We need to send a response," Damon decided. "Let them know she's here, that she's safe." "Ow," Cody asked. "We don't speak their language, and this thing doesn't exactly come with a reply button." Damon thought for a moment. "Video. Universal, right? We record Laia, show she's okay, maybe add our location somehow." "That could work," Cody agreed. "I can set up my camera, boost the signal through the same equipment." They quickly arranged a simple recording setup. Laia stood before the camera, smiling and speaking in her native tongue, a flowing, musical language unlike anything Damon had ever heard. He stepped in a frame briefly to wave, feeling awkward but wanting to show that Laia wasn't alone. "Ready to send?" Cody asked when they'd finished. Laia nodded, making adjustments to the device they'd built. But before she could activate it, the building's security system blared an alarm. "Someone's trying to access the building," Cody said, checking his monitors. His face paled. "Multiple hostiles, professional gear. This isn't a random break-in." "They found us," Damon said, his heart racing. "Ow! I was so careful." Cody was typing frantically, bringing up security camera feeds. 6 individuals, tactical gear, approaching the main entrance. "They've disabled the outer perimeter alarm, but my backup system caught them." "We need to get out of here," Damon said, gathering their equipment. "Laia, can you send the message while we move?" The alien princess shook her head, pointing to the assembled device and making a stationary gesture. "It needs to stay put to maintain alignment," Cody translated. "Probably aimed at a specific part of the sky. So we can't take it with us," Damon concluded grimly. "Perfect." Cody moved to a cabinet and pulled out what looked like a modified tablet. "I've got an emergency exit. Maintenance shaft at the back. It'll take us to the building next door." "What about our message?" "We can't just leave it," Damon protested. Laia was already working, her small fingers adjusting components with incredible speed. She looked up at Damon, her expression determined, and made a gesture, pointing to the device, then mimicking an explosion. "She's setting it to transmit and then self-destruct," Damon realized. "So they can't trace it or figure out how it works." A loud bang echoed from somewhere below them, the sound of the building's main entrance being breached. "Time's up," Cody said, grabbing a backpack and stuffing it with portable equipment. "That exit is looking real good right about now." Laia finished her adjustments and activated the device. It hummed to life, projecting the recorded message skyward. She nodded once, satisfied, then ran to join them. The maintenance shaft was narrow and dusty, clearly unused for years. Cody led the way, using his tablet as a flashlight, with Laia in the middle and Damon bringing up the rear. They'd barely entered when they heard the freight elevator activating. "They're coming up," Damon whispered. "How long until the device transmits everything?" Laia held up 3 fingers. 3 minutes? Seconds. She circled her hand. "Minutes, got it. Let's hope they're slow." They crawled through the cramped passage, emerging eventually into a storage room in the adjacent building. Cody sealed the access panel behind them, then checked his tablet. "Security feed is still active," he said, showing them the screen. "They're in my place." On the small display, They could see men in tactical gear, methodically searching aloft. At the center, the transmission device continued its work, ignored for the moment as the team secured the perimeter. "Come on," Damon murmured, watching the countdown timer Laia had somehow programmed. "Just 30 more seconds." On screen, one of the agents finally noticed the device, approaching it cautiously. He called to another agent, who produced what looked like a scanner of some kind. 10 seconds, Cody whispered. The agent's posture changed suddenly. He'd realized what the device was doing. He shouted something, and two of his colleagues rushed over. 5, 4, 3. The device emitted a bright pulse of light, momentarily whiting out the security feed. When the image stabilized, the men were backing away from a smoking heap of melted components. "Message sent," Damon said with grim satisfaction. "And the evidence is toast." "They'll still be looking for us," Cody pointed out. "And now they know we have serious tech. Which means we need to get somewhere safer," Damon agreed. "Any ideas?" Cody thought for a moment. "My cousin works at the old Holloway Observatory outside of town. Place is practically abandoned since they built the new facility, but the equipment still works." "Perfect," Damon said. "If anyone's looking for us from space, that's where we need to be." They made their way cautiously out of the building, sticking to back alleys and side streets. Laia, apparently sensing the gravity of the situation, stayed close and maintained her disguise without being reminded. As they walked, Damon found himself wondering what exactly he had gotten himself into. 24 hours ago, his biggest concern had been fixing a Russian-speaking television. Now he was on the run from government agents with an alien princess and a plan to contact her royal mother from a defunct observatory. "This is insane," he muttered to himself, not for the first time. Beside him, Laia slipped her small hand into his. When he looked down, she was smiling up at him, her eyes visible just behind the oversized sunglasses. Despite everything, he smiled back. "Yeah, I know," he said softly. "We're going to get you home." Above Earth's atmosphere, the faint signal from Cody's loft radiated outward, traveling through the vacuum of space at light speed. It passed Earth's moon, continued beyond Mars, and journeyed onward, a digital whisper carrying the image of a lost princess and a disheveled human who had somehow become her protector. Light years away, on the planet Siriana, a communication technician's console suddenly chimed with an alert. The technician frowned, adjusting parameters to clean up the weak signal. Then his eyes widened. "Your Majesty," he called, his voice urgent. "We've received a transmission from Earth." Queen Althea, who had been monitoring the communication center personally since the first signal was detected, moved swiftly to his station. "Show me," she commanded. The technician's fingers flew across the interface, and the message began to play on the large central screen. Though distorted and incomplete, the image was unmistakable. Princess Lyanna, alive and apparently unharmed, speaking directly to the camera. Beside her, a human male appeared briefly, awkwardly waving. "It's her," Althea whispered, her hands gripping the edge of the console so tightly that her knuckles whitened. "My daughter lives." "The signal contains spatial coordinates," the technician reported. "We can pinpoint her location on the planet." "Alert the Royal Guard," Althea ordered, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "Prepare my ship immediately. We depart for Earth as soon as possible." As she turned to leave, her chief advisor, Dvilon, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, with respect, we should exercise caution. This underdeveloped world has no official contact with interstellar civilizations. A royal visit could have serious diplomatic consequences." "I care nothing for diplomacy," Althea replied, her eyes flashing. "My daughter is on that planet, apparently in the company of locals. I will not delay her retrieval for the sake of protocols. At least allow the advance team to assess the situation first," Dvilon persisted. "The transmission showed her to be safe. A few more hours will make no difference and could prevent complications." Althea paused, considering. Much as she longed to rush to Lyanna's side, Thalen's counsel was sound. A poorly executed first contact could endanger not only their mission, but potentially her daughter as well. "Very well," she conceded. The advance team will depart immediately. I will follow with the royal vessel in 6 hours, no longer. Elon bowed. A wise decision, Your Majesty. As preparations began around her, Althea watched the recorded message again. Her daughter looked different, slightly taller, her expression somehow more mature than the child who had disappeared 3 years ago. And the human beside her. He appeared disheveled, anxious, but there was something protective in the way he stood next to Lyanna. "Who are you?" she murmured, studying his image. "And how did my daughter come to be in your care?" Soon, she would have answers. Soon, she would hold her child again. After 3 years of empty searching, the impossible had happened, a miracle born from a random signal from a supposedly primitive world. Althea touched the screen gently, her fingers tracing Lyanna's face. "Hold on, my starlight," she whispered. "Mother is coming." The abandoned Holloway Observatory sat atop a hill outside of town, its white dome gleaming in the late afternoon sun. Once state-of-the-art, it had been rendered obsolete by a newer facility built 50 miles away with better atmospheric conditions and less light pollution. Now it served primarily as storage and occasionally as a teaching facility for local schools. Cody's cousin Marcus, a graduate astronomy student who worked part-time maintaining the old equipment, met them at the service entrance with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "When you said you needed access for a special project, I didn't realize you meant breaking and entering with a child in tow," he said as he ushered them. "Inside. It's complicated," Cody replied, clapping his cousin on the shoulder. "The less you know, the better. Just trust me when I say it's important." Marcus sighed. "You always say that right before I end up regretting helping you." He looked at Damon and Laya. "The main telescope is operational, but don't touch anything else without asking. Some of this equipment is fragile, and I'm responsible if anything breaks." "We'll be careful," Damon promised. "Thank you for this." Once Marcus had reluctantly left them alone, Laya immediately made her way to the main observation room. She stood beneath the massive telescope, her gaze fixed on the dome above them, as if she could see through it to the stars beyond. "So what exactly is the plan here?" Cody asked, setting up his equipment on a dusty workstation. "We sent a message, but without your fancy alien tech, I'm not sure how much more we can do." Damon looked to Laya, who was now examining the telescope controls with obvious interest. "I think she wants to use the telescope to, I don't know, look for her people. Maybe they're already on their way." "That thing isn't designed to spot incoming spacecraft," Cody pointed out. "It's for deep space observation." "Well, it's the best we've got," Damon replied. "And it's a lot better than my apartment for waiting to be rescued by aliens." As night fell, they took turns monitoring the skies and watching for any sign of pursuit. Laya worked with surprising proficiency on the observatory's computer systems, occasionally showing Cody particular star patterns or coordinates that meant something to her. Damon, exhausted from the day's events, dozed off in a swivel chair, only to be jolted awake by Laya tugging urgently at his sleeve. "What? What is it?" he mumbled, blinking sleep from his eyes. She pointed excitedly to one of the computer monitors, where a simulation of Earth's near space was displayed. Several new objects had appeared in high orbit, objects that moved with deliberate precision, unlike the typical satellites. "Those aren't ours," Cody said, peering at the screen. "At least, they're not in any database I can access." "Her people," Damon suggested. Laya nodded emphatically, her eyes shining with hope and excitement. "They found us," Damon said, a strange mixture of relief and apprehension washing over him. "They actually found us." The realization that he might soon be saying goodbye to Laya hit him with unexpected force. In the short time they'd been together, he'd grown attached to the strange, musical child from the stars. He would miss her when she returned to her home world, a thought that seemed absurd given that they'd only met yesterday, yet felt completely genuine. "So what happens now?" he asked, more to himself than Laya. She seemed to understand his question. She pointed to the moving objects on the screen, then down to the ground, and finally made a gesture that suggested ship's landing. "They're coming down to get you," Damon translated. "How soon?" Laya hesitated, then held up her hands, fingers spread wide. 10 hours? Minutes? She shook her head and pointed to the sinking moon visible through the observatory's window. By morning, Cody guessed. They'll be here by morning. Damon nodded slowly. Then we need to be ready, and we need to make sure those government agents don't crash the reunion. Through the night, they prepared. Cody set up a perimeter alert system using equipment from his backpack, while Damon helped Laia use the observatory's communications array to send a clearer signal to the approaching ships. The message was simple: coordinates for a landing site, away from population centers, with the observatory as a rendezvous point. As dawn approached, Laia grew increasingly animated, pacing back and forth and checking the monitors frequently. Her anticipation was palpable and contagious. Even Cody, who had maintained a certain professional detachment throughout their adventure, seemed caught up in the excitement. I still can't believe this is happening, Damon said, watching Laia peer through the telescope one more time. First contact, actual aliens, and we're just 3 random people in an abandoned observatory. Speak for yourself, Cody replied with a grin. I always knew I was destined for greatness. Their light moment was interrupted by a sharp beep from Cody's security setup. He rushed to check the alerts, his expression darkening. Multiple vehicles approaching from the south, he reported. Still about 2 miles out, but moving fast. The men in suits? Damon asked, though he already knew the answer. Likely, and more of them this time. Damon turned to Laia, who had abandoned the telescope to join them at the security monitor. Your people, how close are they? Can they get here before those agents? Laia pointed to the eastern sky, just beginning to lighten with the approaching dawn, and made a descending motion with her hand. They're coming in now, Damon interpreted. But will they reach us in time? Laia's uncertain expression was answer enough. The government agents might arrive first, and Damon had no illusions about what would happen if they were caught. Best case scenario, they'd be detained indefinitely. Worst case, well, he'd seen enough movies to know what sometimes happened to people who knew too much about aliens. We need to get to the landing site, he decided. Is there a vehicle we can use? Marcus has an old pickup truck around back, Cody said. But we'd have to get past whoever's coming up the road. Damon thought quickly. How many cameras do you have in that bag of tricks? Cody grinned, catching on immediately. Enough to set up a pretty convincing diversion. Working rapidly, they implemented a hasty plan. Cody's cameras, strategically placed, would project images of them still moving around inside the observatory. Meanwhile, they would slip out through the maintenance tunnel that ran beneath the building, emerging near the storage shed where Marcus kept the truck. Remember, once we're at the landing site, keep your distance from the ships until Laia signals it's safe, Damon instructed as they prepared to leave. We don't know what kind of security protocols her people might have. Trust me, I have no intention of getting vaporized by trigger-happy alien guards, Cody assured him. They made their way through the dark, cramped tunnel, emerging into the pre-dawn light near the back of the property. As promised, an old blue pickup truck sat beside the storage shed, partially hidden by overgrown bushes. Please have keys, Damon muttered as they approached. Better than keys, Cody replied, pulling out a small electronic device. Universali niczym bypass, one of my less legitimate inventions. Within minutes, they were driving down the back service road that wound through the hills, away from the main approach to the observatory. Through the rear window, Damon could see vehicles with flashing lights ascending the main road. That was close, he said. How far to the landing site? About 5 miles, Cody replied, checking the coordinates on his tablet. There's an old dried lake bed that should work perfectly. As they drove, the sky continued to lighten. And then, just as the first direct rays of sunlight crested the eastern hills, they saw it. A luminous object descending from the clouds, moving with deliberate grace unlike any aircraft Damon had ever seen. Holy shit, Cody breathed, slowing the truck. That's really happening. The craft was sleek and elongated, with a pearlescent surface that seemed to shift colors as it moved. It descended toward the lake bed ahead of them, coming to rest just as they approached the edge of the flat expanse. Damon stopped the truck a safe distance away. Now what? Laia was already opening her door, practically vibrating with excitement. Before Damon could stop her, she had jumped out and was running toward the spacecraft, all pretense of disguise abandoned. "Laya, wait," Damon called, scrambling out after her. "We don't know if." He stopped mid-sentence as a section of the craft's smooth surface slid open, revealing a ramp. Figures emerged, tall, elegant beings with the same distinctive features as Laya, dressed in what appeared to be form-fitting uniforms of an iridescent material. Laya had stopped running and now stood midway between the truck and the ship, uncertainty suddenly replacing her excitement. These weren't her family. They were some kind of advanced team or security detail. One of the figures stepped forward, addressing Laya in their musical language. She responded hesitantly, glancing back at Damon as if seeking reassurance. "It's okay," he called to her, though he had no idea if it actually was. "They're here to help you." The alien figure looked up at Damon's voice, studying him with unmistakable suspicion. It said something to its companions, and two of them moved forward, approaching Laya with purposeful strides. Damon tensed, ready to run to her aid if necessary, but Laya stood her ground. She spoke more forcefully now, gesturing back toward Damon and Cody, clearly explaining something. The leader of the group hesitated, then nodded. It spoke into a device on its wrist, and moments later, the air around them began to shimmer with an odd distortion. "What's happening?" Cody asked nervously from beside the truck. "I think they're scanning us, or setting up some kind of perimeter," Damon guessed. The distortion faded, and the alien leader approached Laya again, speaking in gentler tones. Laya responded with what sounded like relief, then turned and beckoned to Damon. "She wants you to come forward," Cody translated unnecessarily. Damon SW.